Shalom and welcome. Now we're going to talk about verb morphology. Okay, in verb morphology we're basically saying, how do I take my verb and place it into the correct written and vowelized form so that I can say it in the future, past, and present tense. So this is going to be based upon what are the letters that are in that root. For example, in a whole verb, you're going to be having root letters that will not drop off or disappear. Well, that's going to be based upon looking at the rest of the ones you're going to find, and you're going to figure out, this makes sense. I know exactly what we're using. So let's look at the second one. First one is going to be the first guttural. So if we have an ein or a chet in the first letter, which if we're looking at it from the standpoint of 1, 2, 3, it is going to be the root that is going to be in position 1, okay? So the root in position 1 that is a guttural, such as an ein or a chet, this one has to be vowelized using this chart. The next one is for the first aleph. So if the first root letter is an aleph, that's going to mean that this has to be the chart you utilize this root with, because its first letter is the aleph. The next one is the first yud, okay? The first yud is going to be based upon the two different variances. There are some yud verbs that disappear and some yud verbs that remain intact. And that's going to be based upon which one is going to be needed for which actual chart. And based upon that, that yud is going to be placed in, that verb is going to be placed in that first yud chart. Okay? If you have any questions as to what verb should be placed with what, look at my verb classification, which you can click on, and go through them, scroll down, and it actually places every verb in its proper chart order that it's supposed to be in. The next one we're going to look at first nun. So any nun that's in the first position here is going to be working with this chart. Now there also is a second guttural. And the second guttural is going to be in position number 2. So that means if I have a guttural in this position, I'm going to be using this chart here. The next one is the hollow verb. So that means these are verbs with had the yud, a vav, whether it's the u or the o sound that's in the second position. And here, in the second position, we're going to be utilizing this chart only. So the hollow verb charts, we're going to utilize this chart only. And it's going to depend on if it's the yud or the u or the o sound. If we look at that, I've separated each of these threes into their own separate parts, but we're going to be utilizing that chart. The next is the Geminid. The Geminid verbs are going to be verbs that have to do with double root letters that end with the same letter. Okay, so for example, this is a mem and this is a mem. This is just an ending mem, but basically they're the same root letters. So mem, mem, resh, resh, kuf, kuf, tav, tav. It doesn't matter what it is, but if it's double, then this means that we're going to be using this specific one. So that means number 3 and number 2, both of these places are going to have the same root letter. And so this is the chart we'll be using for this one. And then of course, the third ein. Now this is going to be placed here, where the third ein means if we have a guttural at the end, whether it's a chet or an ein, we're going to be using this third ein chart. And the third aleph, so if the aleph is placed here in this position, we're going to be using the letter aleph is going to be connected to the third aleph here with this chart. And then lastly, we have the third hey. So if the hey is here at the end of our root, and it's the third letter, we know that we're going to be using this specific chart. Now, there are obviously going to be very unique exceptions to the rules with certain roots, and that's going to be placed with some of the charts that I placed in there, which are the special case rules, by which maybe there is a guttural here, and maybe there's another letter here that would normally kind of fit in one of these categories. This is a special chart we're utilizing. And so what's the chart going to be looking like? So, well, if you go and you upload on the website, you're going to find charts that are going to look something like this. Mine's a little more messier, but the one that we're going to have is a lot more decent and prettier. But you're going to see that over here, you have the present tense forms that you can fill in the blanks. And these spaces, each of these spaces is one for each letter of the root. Over here, we have the future tense. And so as you can see, you can fill in all the future tense ways of saying it from I all the way to they at the end on this chart. And we also have over here the past tense. In the past tense form, you can place all the possible variables of the past tense form, and this is for the whole verb. So if you look at the chart, you're going to see the chart's going to tell you what kind of chart it is. In this case, it is a whole verb chart, okay? So each chart's going to have their own special title on the top of it. You'll be able to recognize and see it. And of course, down here, the beauty of this chart is you also have the ability to do the command form and the infinitive form. So the command form is over here, and the infinitive form is over here. You have the absolute and you have the construct state, as well as the main infinitive, which is down here, which is normally using the lamed preposition. And you have also the pronouns that can be attached to it at the bottom, which is placed down here. And then you have here, which is kind of like your infinitive absolute. And these are the double verbs that express absolute action, or they express a repetitive state of action. And so all of these things you could possibly utilize with to how you're going to vowelize a verb. These charts got it. And this is the chart you're going to be utilizing. So if you want to go to the website, just download the thing where it talks about the verb charts. You can download each verb chart individually from Pa'al all the way down to Hit Pa'al. And you can literally create a notebook out of it. You can download as many as you want. You can print it off over and over again, so you can make a number of Pa'al verb charts. You can make a number of Hit Pa'al or PL verb charts. And then of course, you can go through the website and you can find on there, that's right, you're going to be able to see this. It's the chart. This is the chart I was talking about. So this chart here, it's about, I think, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 pages worth, maybe even more than that, maybe 90. You could take this chart, and this chart classifies all the verbs based upon these actual classifications. So it's actually taking the verbs itself and it's placing it already in these classified forms so that you don't have to actually search around through it. But, you know, for somebody who wants to practice going through a dictionary and looking at the verb and then trying to figure out what verb chart, this is how you have to memorize this, because in order to use the verb morphologies, you got to make sure that it fits which categorization of these charts it needs to be placed in. And then of course remember your 1 and 2 and 3 position of your root. For every root, we know in Hebrew is a 3-letter root. There are some, changes where there's some like very few 4-letter roots, but we're not worried about that in this area. We're going to focus only upon the 3-letter roots. And I want to just add to you and stuff, remember that, the things you got to just put into position in your mindset is the fact that when you take the words and you vowelize them, you have the ability now to start creating sentences utilizing the actual thing. Because the chart tells you, if you go back and read the main chart, the chart tells you exactly what it is. If it's the I, the you, the he, the she, all the way down to command form. And as you practice utilizing these different roots and utilizing the charts, it's actually going to help you actually grow vocabulary in Biblical Hebrew and actually give you words that you would never even find in a dictionary because, well, that root may have never used that specific way of doing it, or maybe that root never used that specific term. Maybe it didn't use the third person plural. Maybe it didn't use the second person masculine singular. These are all the things that you have with regard to helping you learn Biblical Hebrew and helping you grow. And I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time as we talk about verb classifications in our next video coming up.